Good morning. Fremont County Board of Commissioners meeting is called to order, and we'll begin with the invocation by Steve Van Winkle from Canyon Community Baptist Church, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. If you could turn on that mic, center button.
Morning. Let's pray. Father, we gather here this morning grateful for the grace and long suffering you've shown our nation. Father, for the blessings we've received in the gospel of Jesus Christ and your common grace. Father, we're also grateful for this commission and staff who have dedicated themselves to the service of the citizens of this county. Lord, we ask you give them grace in their deliberations and wisdom in their decision. We ask these things in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Roll call.
Commissioner Grantham.
Here.
Commissioner McFall.
Present.
Commissioner Bell.
Present.
County Attorney Jackson.
Present.
County Manager Croce.
Present.
Planning and Zoning Director Victoria.
Present.
Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I don't know of any changes we need to make. I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, including approval of the minutes from July 11, our typical bills approval, ratification of signature on our employees benefit trust insurance renewal, the Retirement Association Retirement Plan and Trust Agreement, as well as the scheduling of hearings, public hearings, including the CUP 23-001 for the Tallahassee Resources Exploration Project and zone consolidation and rewrite, and the zone let's see, that's for the new formatting to zone districts and the minor change in zone districts, as well as the zone consolidation of the HDR and MDR zones.
All right, Mr. Chair, with all of those public hearings that we are setting, October 24th, be here if you're interested in those things. I move to approve today's agenda, a consent agenda.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Let's see, next on our agenda is the administrative and informational, easy for me to say, portion of our meeting. Begin with our county manager and our staff and elected officials portion. County Manager Tony Croce.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. So I'll start off with our job opportunities. So we have the following job opportunities posted. Fremont County Sheriff's Department, we have a need for detention deputies, master control officer, and a deputy for the Department of Human Services. The Fremont County Building Department, we have an opportunity for a permit technician. And the Department of Human Services, we have vacancies for a family engagement facilitator, early intervention caseworker, adolescent child welfare caseworker, and a Medicaid economic security technician. For more information about our employment opportunities with Fremont County, please go to our county website at fremontco.com, or you can call our HR department at 719-276-7410. The Department of Transportation has notified us that South Street will be closed at the intersection of 15th Street, as well as 15th Street from Central to South Street, from Monday, September 25th through Thursday, September the 28th, while crews conduct culvert installations. Roads will be closed from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., and we ask that you plan that your commute and use alternate routes. And as always, we appreciate your patience and cooperation while our crews work to complete the much-needed repairs to our infrastructure. Today, I would also like to lift up our Fremont County Veterans Service Office, which is located on the upper level of the Fremont County Administration Department in room 203. We have two Veteran Services officers, Marty Peak and Tricia Hill, both retired military service members who have a combined total of 83 years of experience. Marty retired from civil service and the military with multiple deployments and has known only military life, growing up as a child of a military service member. Tricia was hired in June and comes to Fremont County after having served 28 years as a U.S. Army nurse. We are very happy that she chose to come work at Fremont County. She's been a real blessing to that department. The estimated number of veterans in Fremont County is approximately 5,000, or about 11% of our total county population. During the month of August, the Fremont County Veterans Service Office served over 479 customers. So they've been very busy. Veteran service officers are trained and accredited by the VA, the Veterans Association, or other recognized organizations to provide assistance to veterans, their dependents, and survivors. This includes not only applying for federal and state benefits, but also providing information and resources related to the following: compensation and pensions, health care, education and training, employment, burial and survivor, housing, transportation, military records, and Colorado benefits. The VA Service Office can also assist veterans and their families in many other ways, including answering questions, advising, and educating individuals and groups on what benefits are available to them from federal, state, county, and local resources, assisting persons in completing and filing benefit claims, and representing individuals at VA hearings. The hours for the Veterans Service Office at Fremont County Administration Office are Tuesday from 8 till 4 p.m., Wednesday from 12 to 4 p.m., and on Thursday from 8 to 4 p.m. They are hoping that beginning in January, this office will be open the same hours as the county building, which of course is Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you have any questions or concerns, please call 719-276-7400 and ask for Marty or Tricia. And that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to make note, approaching Veterans Day here, and of course we have many of our other celebrations throughout the year in regard to celebrating our military and the significant impact they have here on our community in a positive way. And we certainly appreciate and celebrate our Veterans Service Office and our Veterans Service Officer, and we really appreciate Marty and all the good work that he does in helping our veterans. So, any reports from our elected officials?
Perhaps.
We'll start with the clerk, and then we'll work our way down.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is that season for elections. I want you guys to know that this week is ballot creation week, where we take all the certified information from all the participating entities and create a ballot to be sent out in October. The certified content will be 2 questions from the state. The bigger municipalities, Canyon City and Florence, have certified candidates to the ballot, mayor and their city councils, so be aware of that. If you live inside the municipalities, either Canyon or Florence, you'll be voting in their municipal elections. And there's also school district elections. For those of you who don't know, we actually have 5 school districts in Fremont County. Of those 5, 2 are participating with us. 3 are participating, 2 have canceled. So if you live in the Colorado Mountain College District, that would be the western end of the county, you have some candidates on the ballot. We also have some candidates for Canyon City School District, that's RA1, and the Florence Penrose School District, which is RA2. So just be aware that they are also participating in this year's election. And I believe RA1 has certified a Tabor question to the ballot as well. So it'll be a full ballot. And if you haven't updated your voter registration, now's the time. Go to govotecolorado.gov or go see our election office and update your registration so that when the ballots are out and the voting centers are open, you can vote. That is it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to mention this weekend is Pioneer Days in Florence. Many folks may not know and understand the big event actually starts on Friday, runs through Sunday. Most of us are very, very familiar and acquainted with what happens on Saturday. The parade is at 10 o'clock Saturday morning, and then followed by a full day of food, fun, music, festivities, and frolic in Pioneer Park. So I would just urge everyone to come out. This weekend is supposed to be some more beautiful weather. It's going to come back for us on Saturday, so I hope that we see you there. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure about that frolicking
That's
part.
what I was wondering.
That's the rumor. That's what I've heard.
That's what you heard.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to mention we're blessed to have the rain that we had the other day, but it is still very dry out there. We've had a couple fires just real close in the last week or so. So just be very careful when you're out and about, because the fuels are still out there that can burn. We got some tall grass because of the moisture we had early, and it's starting to dry out, so it's becoming very volatile. I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Washington, D.C. to advocate for PILT money. Payment in lieu of taxes is money we receive for the amount of acreage of federal lands we have in the county that we can't collect taxes on. We receive about $1.3 million a year, and the federal government consistently makes us wait. We're doing our budgets, and we're kind of counting on that, and this is all of the western states for the most part, because that's where most of the public land is. We're doing our budgets, and we're kind of counting on this in the budget, and they at any time could not fund that. So what we advocate for through National Association of Counties is permanent funding of the PILT funds, or at least a longer duration, because I do it from year to year. So there's probably about 30, 35 of us from the western states will be there, flying tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday. What is today? Thursday. We will meet with senators and the Congress folks and advocate to them how important it is, because they're the ones that vote on that. And hopefully we can get that passed again. We were full paid this year, but we're working on next year's already. So it's going to be a real quick trip, but it's going to be very important out there. So we're going to do what we can to advocate for federal money for our federal lands. We are about 54% in Fremont County of federal land, so it's a pretty good chunk of our land. So look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay. And now that I'm finally back in the pocket here after missing a couple meetings, have to restart my efforts to encourage you to vote no on HH here in a few weeks. This is a sleight of hand by our state legislature and trying to trick us into voting for a tax increase, which is basically taking away all of our TABOR refunds, but giving us just a little bit of percentage back here on the county level, and framing it as a tax relief measure, when in fact it is quite the opposite. So please vote no on HH. For your own personal benefit, the county would get a little bit of relief on the property tax level, but then you would see you would lose actually more money than that on the income tax side to the state. So please vote no on HH. My other public service announcement is yesterday I participated in the Board of Directors meeting for the Gold Belt Scenic Byway. And many of you might go, huh? What is that? I get it. If you're driving down several of the streets here in the county or the highway, you see the little blue signs occasionally that point you in one direction or the other that say Scenic Byway. That is the Gold Belt Scenic Byway. And that group actually helps maintain those signs and helps promote many of the historic and scenic areas along that byway across this two-county region of Teller County and Fremont County. There's actually many scenic byways across the western United States, and this happens to be one of ours right here in this area. That group is funded by local governments, by local businesses, and if you are interested in that, we'd encourage you to participate in that. It's a benefit to the entire community, to the tourism industry, and They work on promoting that scenic byway to encourage folks to come by and come through Fremont County and Teller County to see the beautiful things we take for granted and get to see every day. If you would like to participate in that group, the Gold Belt Scenic Byway group, then please reach out to me. They actually do memberships to help encourage local businesses to participate on a more direct level. So if that's an interest to you, please contact me in my office here. That's about it for me. Any updates from since I left you off the list, a few weeks ago? I want to make sure I leave the opportunity. Okay. Next on our agenda is the opportunity for citizens who wish to address the commissioners on a matter not scheduled on the agenda. And we have one of yours, Lester, on Tallahassee. You saved that for later? Okay. Then I will put that one to the side for now, and you want to save it for October 24th when we have the hearing? Okay, then that's what we'll do. Okay. There is no old business, so we'll move on to new business then, unless there are others that I shouldn't stray too far from that part of the agenda. If there are other citizens that wish to address something not on the agenda, now is that time. Okay. On the new business, item number 1 is the Kinship Care Month proclamation. And we have some representatives here to come on up to the podium. Molly Willard and Amy Maroney. Did I get it right? All right. You did. Fantastic.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Turn that microphone on there. There you go.
You bet. Why don't you go ahead and present what you got, and if you want, at some point, read this proclamation for us.
So before I get started with the proclamation, I just wanted to share some data with you all that we've been working really hard on in terms of kinship care. So from January to June of 2023, Fremont County was able to place 69% of children removed from the home with kin. So meaning relatives or somebody that has a relationship with that child or that family. So we're very, very proud of those numbers, and we continue to work to try to increase those as well. And Colorado, through that same time frame, was only hitting 50% as a whole, so us hitting 69% is really going in the right direction. And then in terms of the proclamation, whereas Fremont County is steadfast in its commitment to promoting the safety and well-being of our children, that includes providing a stable household for all youth in which they can feel safe, be nurtured, and succeed. And whereas in 2022, across the nation, 3% of all children, more than 2.5 million, were in kinship care. In Colorado, a monthly average of 3,602 children, and in Fremont County, a monthly average of 49 children were raised with kinship families, such as grandparents or relative caregivers, who had stepped forward out of love and loyalty to care for their young relatives, providing them with a sense of connection, security, ties to their cultural heritage, their family, and their community. And whereas the kinship caregivers reside in urban, rural, and suburban neighborhoods across Fremont County, and children, grandparents, and other relatives in kinship families face certain challenges, therefore partnerships among the educational, legal, social services, mental health, chemical dependency counseling, judicial, law enforcement, and other systems are important for ensuring access to services that can assist children and youth that are placed in kinship care before provided opportunities to flourish in all facets of their lives. Furthermore, Fremont County residents are asked to join in honoring grandparents, relatives, friends, and community members who step forward out of love and loyalty to care for at-risk children during times in which biological parents are unable to do so. And whereas Kinship Care Month provides an opportunity to showcase the accomplishments of countless children and youth throughout Fremont County, who with the unconditional love and support of their grandparents and other relatives have successfully navigated the emotional difficulties that beset the separation from their parents. All Fremont County citizens are encouraged to raise their awareness and understanding of the importance of positive family environments that kinship families offer for many Fremont County children. Now, therefore, we ask the Fremont County Board of Commissioners to hereby proclaim September 2023 to be Kinship Care Month in Fremont County. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any
If I
comments?
may.
Please,
Yes.
Commissioner.
Ladies, I would just like to say thank you so much for being here and for talking about this incredibly important topic here, not only in our community, but statewide, nationwide. Many folks in Fremont County may not know if you are unable to place a child in kinship care locally, they're probably going to have to leave their community. That means they'll leave Fremont County, they will leave their school, they will leave their entire support system, they will leave friends behind, and they will have to go somewhere else until their permanent housing arrangement is figured out. And so what those kinship families do for those kids is incredibly, incredibly important, as you know. I also think dealing with children is probably one of the most emotional things that you can do as a caseworker, as someone who is involved with the Department of Human Services. And I just want to say, God bless all of you who do this incredibly important work every single day. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, real quick, thank you for being here. And 69%, wow, that's amazing. Keep up the work, because I remember in times past it's been half that, or a lot less. So good job with that, and keep that up. And with that, Mr. Chair, I have a motion if you're ready.
Please.
I move to approve the proclamation declaring September 2023 as Kinship Care Month in Fremont County.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded, and just to throw in my 2 cents, this is just one of the many aspects of what goes on in our Department of Human Services that the three of us get to brag on when we go to our conferences and whatnot and get to talk about our department and the great work that you guys do over there. So thank you for this aspect of all the great things going on. So much appreciated. Has been moved and seconded. Any further comments? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Fantastic. And do we want to get a picture?
Of course we do.
Yes.
Of course we do.
We can get Tony to
Please
take a
join
picture.
us down front here.
Of course you do.
If you ladies would come on back up.
Straighten out our chairs. so they don't look
Oh, come on, Kevin. Somebody's been messing with my chair and I'm so uncomfortable. I'm afraid if I start messing with it, I'm gonna hit the floor or be so disruptive.
All right. Next on our agenda, number 2 on the agenda, new business, the request for the issuance of a malt, Venice, and spirituous liquor and fermented malt beverage special events permit. That's a mouthful. For the Boys and Girls Club of Fremont County for an event at Pathfinder Event Center, 6655 Highway 115 in Florence for October 27th from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. in 2023. Is Eric Thompson here? Eric, come on up and turn that mic on and let us know what you got planned.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sir.
So another fundraiser for this year. It's our annual event, and instead of having it late spring, early summer, we moved it to close to Halloween. It is a costume kind of event, so we thought that would give people more of an excuse to dress up for Halloween.
Fantastic. Excellent. Any questions for Mr. Thompson?
Nope.
Yes, of course.
Please.
Yeah, I would just like to discuss, I know you guys have done this before, and I'm sure you have your ducks in a row, but we need to talk just a little bit about serving alcohol. Who is going to be serving? Are they certified? Have they been trained? Are they tip certified, certified through the city? And what will be done to ensure and control that no one under the age of 21 will be drinking?
Okay. No one under the age of 21 will be allowed on premise. IDs will be checked. The caterer that's working the event this year has been given, it's not TIPS training, because TIPS isn't the only one. It's TIPS is a kind of a company or a brand, if you will.
Sure.
But they are receiving state training. And that was a condition of them obtaining the catering service contract. And so all that is being done and will be done prior to the event taking place.
All right, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, anything? Okay. This time, we will turn to our county clerk for a report.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The clerk's office sees no issues with the application, as we've been provided all the necessary documentation. The application was reviewed by the county attorney, the health department, and the sheriff's office, and all recommend approval. And we also recommend approval as the clerk's office.
Okay. Any questions for the clerk? Okay. Hearing none. Anything else?
Just one really quick question. We do have a map in front of us, and it's basically a map of the inside venue, the auditorium there at the event center. So just verifying that that is indeed the serving boundaries.
Yes,
Okay,
it is.
all right. I have no further questions, Mr. Chair, but I have a motion.
Please.
I move to approve the malt, Venice, and spirituous liquor and fermented malt beverage special events permit for Boys and Girls Club of Fremont County for the event at Pathfinder Event Center on October 27th from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m.
We'll second it.
Okay, has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just a quick note that I was at the event last year that you guys put on, and it was a great time. Hopefully this will be too, and encourage everybody to come out and support the Boys and Girls Club.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Didn't you win the costume contest or something along
I
those
won
lines?
the dance contest.
That's
Believe that
what
or
it was,
not.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's worth the price of
I
admission
think
alone.
the judges were
Yes,
blind or
that's-
something, probably. I don't know.
Hey, and I was prom queen. I have to throw that one out there. That was a
Okay,
really
okay.
fun night. That was, but I also had the full costume, including a blonde curly wig, and no one knew who I was.
That's the way to do it, yes.
That's
So,
how she won.
I had a lot of fun. That's how I won. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it was a lot of fun last time.
Okay, with those comments in mind, roll call.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Eric.
thank you very much.
Good luck with your events.
It is 3 minutes to 10 o'clock, and we do have public hearings scheduled for 10 o'clock, but we have a list of things on the rest of new business that should be relatively quick. And so if it's okay with my fellow commissioners, we're gonna power through to the end of the new business and get these things done, and then we'll pick up the public hearings at the end of new business. So, items number 3 and 4 actually kind of go together. These are revoking the designation of a portion of Fremont County Road 45, open to off-highway vehicle traffic, and then number 4 is designating a portion of Fremont County Road 54 to the same off-highway vehicle traffic. And so, actually, I'll turn to Commissioner McFall, if you don't mind
Sure.
giving a brief explanation.
Absolutely, thank you. There is a business on the west end of Fremont County that runs ATVs, and they had an office 7/10 of a mile down County Road 45. We approved that section of County Road 45 for ATV use, and only that 7/10, which then they get off onto County Road 53, and then they ended up into the trailhead of U.S. Forest Service or BLM, whichever one is there. They have moved their offices to where Captain Zipline is, which is on County Road 54, which intersects with County Road 53. There'll be a test after this. So what these two resolutions will do is, one, take that designation away from County Road 45. It is no longer needed, that 7/10. Add, it's just about not quite half a mile of County Road 54, and we already have 53 designated as that. So that'll allow them to ride those ATVs from their Captain Zipline headquarters down County Road 54, intersect with 53, and get onto the federal lands. We're 53, yep, 53 intersects with 54. So unless there's any questions, I have a motion.
Anything, Commissioner?
No, sir.
Okay, just a brief, because the business moved from 45 up onto their site, this is just a reminder for everyone that ATV use on our county roads is pretty wearing on our county roads, and there is some safety issues that the sheriff would note, and the use that we proved on 45 for this business does not continue beyond the business, moving away from there. So we want to make sure that we emphasize that this is not a use by right that we've created in perpetuity, and that's why we were taking away that usage from 45 and moving it to where it's needed for that business. And this is why this is a case-by-case basis. So, Commissioner.
Let me add one more thing. With the granting of this for that business, they do have certain stipulations they have to follow, and that's going slow on our county roads. Because they do tear up the county roads so bad, so they have to mind their speeds and not tear up the roads and get off them as quick as they can. And with that, I have a motion.
Do the
Okay.
first one?
I will do them both together, and I'll have both resolution numbers.
Okay.
I move to approve resolution number 26, which is designation, removing the designation of portion of County Road 45 to off-highway vehicles, and resolution number 27, which designates County Road 54 open to highway, off-highway vehicles.
I'll second.
So do we, just a question for Attorney Jackson, do we need to take two separate votes for two separate resolutions?
You can approve them both in one motion.
In one motion and one vote?
Separately numbered.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. That was the question.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on resolutions number 26 and resolution number 27? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner McFall,
Aye.
Commissioner Bell,
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion's carry.
Those have been approved. Next is the changing of a meeting date for the BOCC and our Board of Human Services and our Board of Health meetings from Tuesday, November 28th to Thursday, November 30th. Our BOCC at normal time, 9:30 a.m., Human Services at 1:15, and Board of Health at 2 p.m. on that Thursday, November 30th. And that reason for that is we have a annual conference over that first day, the Tuesday, the 28th, and so we will not be here for those meetings and need to move that to Thursday.
Indeed, Mr. Chair, we will be in Jefferson County for Colorado Counties Incorporated Winter Conference that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but we'll return on Thursday. So we are moving our meeting dates, normal times, different day. So with that, I move to approve the changes as mentioned.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Bell,
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item on our agenda is the reappointment of Lou Toxford to the Airport Advisory Board for a term ending October 1, 2026. And we'll have a couple or three of these in a row here. Lou's done an excellent job, and I believe is currently chair of the Airport Advisory Board and does a great job in that role. And I will move to approve the reappointment of Lou Toxford to the Airport Advisory Board for a term ending October 1, 2026.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Need further discussion?
Just how much we appreciate all those folks who are willing to serve on the various volunteer boards that we have here in Fremont County. And a note that we always make certain we have something in writing that they are interested and willing to continue. So we do have those in front of us this morning.
Correct. Roll call.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next one is the reappointment of James Wick to the Airport Advisory Board for a term ending October 1, 2026.
Mr. Chair, I will add what you, agree with what you said, and add James has been a great addition to the Airport Advisory since he's been on there. He is asking for reappointment, and I move to approve his reappointment, term ending this October 1st, 2026.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And last but not least is the reappointment of Mildred Wentz to the Fremont County Heritage Commission for a term ending December 31, 2026. And just a note on Mildred, she is one of those mainstays in the Heritage Center or the Heritage Commission. She comes out of Florence and does a lot of work in Florence history, and she is just a fantastic individual and perfectly suited for this commission and the work that the Heritage Commission does in preserving the history of this county. And I would move for the reappointment of Mildred Wentz to the Fremont County Heritage Commission for a term ending December 31, 2026.
October, oh, it is December, okay, yeah, second.
I'll
Got used to
third-
the airport
I-
advisory.
I
Yeah.
just would say real quickly that I completely agree with our chairman about the type of person that she is, and she's so much fun to be around. And boy, she knows history. So, yeah, she's a great addition to that board.
Has been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We are now at the time at 10:05 for our public hearings that were scheduled for the proposed regulations in regard to residential 1, zone consolidation and rewrite, and residential 2, zone consolidation and rewrite, and residential 3, zone consolidation and rewrite. And I will begin by opening the public hearing and turning to our staff for an explanation.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Dan.
So it's kind of no secret that our regulations need a little bit of updating. So myself and my department have been working for just about a year now to try and figure out what is the next best step moving forward for the county. So currently we have 6 agricultural residential zone districts. And it leads into a lot of different problems. There's not a lot of differences between some of them. And our naming of them leads into financing issues for banks that don't want to lend to agricultural endeavors, whether or not agricultural is actually occurring on the lot. So I'm going to dive right in with the residential 1, zone consolidation and rewrite. Planning and zoning has recognized the need for a review and update to the regulations. This rewrite and consolidation is to address the agricultural suburban and agricultural estates zone district. The proposal in front of you is a consolidation of these 2 districts into a new residential 1 or R1 zone district. The changes include reformatting, renaming, a new zone description, the development requirements of the smaller zone district, ag suburban, becoming the standard, and consolidating the uses of the 2 zone districts and adding new uses into the regulations. Our intent is, in this consolidation, is to address many issues and deficiencies in the current regulations, but not limited to citizens having confusions about the zone district they reside in, 6 current agricultural zone districts, zone district names causing difficulty for individuals to get financing as banks will not offer loans to agricultural operations, uses needing updating, the current regulations propose barriers for housing, consolidation will offer the citizens of Fremont County the opportunity to have more opportunities on the land they own, and the current regulations had descriptions of uses in the allowed uses tables. The description of the uses have been moved to the general requirements section or detailed in the definitions section and will be presented at a later time. So in the past, when updates were done to our uses, it seems that stuff was kind of put in the wrong place and it caused confusion, and so we're kind of cleaning up some of those errors. In the attachments, you'll see strike-throughs and red and yellow highlighting. Strike-throughs will detail items that were moved to the general requirements section or the definition section, which will be presented at a later time. Red details uses by consolidation of the 2 districts, and yellow details new uses. So for ag suburban and ag estates, they actually have the same minimum acreage, lot width, coverage, building height. These 2 are so very similar. There was 3 differences between the 2. So this consolidation was very simple. We gave it a new name. We modified the description of it. As part of a moratorium that we had in place for manufactured homes, we're listing different types of homes under a dwelling. So in this, under the allowed uses, you'll see dwelling. And then under the conditions across from it, you'll see various types of dwellings as an example. So in order to accommodate that moratorium, we've just cleaned it up, and if it's a dwelling, it's a dwelling, regardless of type. The other two changes were community building and golf course. So the uses that we've done is we've added golf course over into the allowed uses, and we added the cemetery under SRUs. And that is the only change for this consolidation, or only changes for this consolidation. Do you guys want me to field questions as we go, or wait till the end and jump back?
Why don't, well, I guess turn to my fellow commissioners. Do you have any preference?
I would prefer to deal with them now
Okay.
instead of wait until the very end for all of it, because I think if we're trying to talk about 3 different sets of regulations, we are all going to get confused.
I do agree.
So,
Yep.
In that case, why don't we go to those who have signed up to speak? And we are talking about, I have at least in order, Charlotte, Norman, Lester, Lyman, Sue Madone, and George Hall. If there are any others that wish to speak today, I would encourage you to go ahead and fill out a sheet over there by Deputy Villagrana, and we'll get you in line here. If you want to speak on this particular residential zone 1, I will start with Charlotte. Come on up.
good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's been a long time since I've been here.
It has been a long time.
First of all, I wanted to say that I'm impressed by the amount of effort and thought that has gone into this rewrite. I appreciate that work from your staff and from you, Mr. Victoria. That said, my name is Charlotte Norman. I'm the president of the board of the Penrose Water District Board of Directors. Penrose Water District is a Colorado special district. We have one mission, which is to provide potable municipal water to the people living in the area, the unincorporated area known as Penrose. As I'm sure most of you know, we've been on a very, very long mission to bring additional supplemental water into the Penrose area. Some parts of that are finally completed this year. We are free of the land in Howard, no longer required to do any work up there except maintain one small structure. But we do still have cases going on around our efforts to supplement our water supply. We are opposed to one specific provision in this new residential R1 zone, which is the 1 acre minimum lot size with public water and OWTS. We're opposed to this for 2 reasons. One is that we simply do not have and will not have enough water to increase the density within our district. There is no more water available on the Arkansas River. It's highly overappropriated, and if water does somehow magically become available, it's going to go to communities with deeper pockets than we have. It's going to go north to Colorado Springs or to Aurora in one way or another. We have been working with planning and zoning on some subdivisions, and we've reached some understandings of what you're after, and we hopefully are continuing that relationship well. Our second reason for opposing this particular piece of this zoning change is the OWTS, the septic systems that would be allowed on 1 acre lots. Quite some time ago, probably prior to 2000, Fremont County had been approving subdivisions down to 2.5 and even 1 acre in the Penrose area. And the county recognized that these concentrated septic systems were a problem in Penrose. Our geology is rather unique. We have thin topsoil underlain by heavily broken limestone, and that is underlain by a very dense layer of shale, practically impenetrable. And that shale zone slopes down towards the Arkansas River. So when zoning changes were made in 2000, the county determined that having more septic systems would eventually degrade the Arkansas River. Basically, the thought was, and I concur with this, we have a little bit of topsoil that absorbs and filters some of the water from our septic systems. A lot of our septic systems are really in broken limestone that lets the water flow directly down to that shale, and it's a little underground river flowing directly to the Arkansas. And I've actually seen this a couple of times, even when we had dry years and there was very limited irrigation. There are some places in Penrose where if you dig a hole or try to dig a foundation, you'll actually have flowing water down about 5 or 6 feet below the surface, headed towards the Arkansas River. So we do have a very small sanitation district in Penrose, but services primarily the downtown area. Everything else is on septic, and we are opposed because of the potential degradation of the Arkansas River of septic systems on less than the nominal 5 acres, which is now in your regulations, 4.5 acres zoning for our area. And just as a very tiny personal comment and aside, my background is as a civil engineer, and I work with numbers a lot. One thing I have noticed is that people don't do as well with fractions as a rule as they do with decimal points. So I guess I would suggest if you're going to call out lot sizes as 4.5 acres, it might be to your staff's benefit to call them out as 4.5 or 4.51, because people will have a tendency to round up, and they will come in and argue with your staff and my staff repeatedly. It's almost 4.5 acres, it's 4.3. Anyway, that's certainly not a public comment, but it's just my thought when I was looking at your proposals. So thank you. I hope you'll take us into consideration with this. And I mentioned to Mr. Victoria at the last planning and zoning meeting that we are always available if you have comments or questions about how to deal with us, and if we can in any way help with the process that you're going through, both with this and with your affordable housing initiative. So call me or our district manager at the office, Ron Gasser, and I think you guys all have the number. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Much appreciated on that, Charlotte. And your point on the decimals is well taken with the doing appraisals for many years here and dealing with the technicalities of those things. There are particular lots up here in North Canyon, like along Vermont and Pennsylvania, that are 1 acre lots, and the zoning is for a minimum of 1 acre. But technically, the lots are 0.999. And the technicality of that is that as appraisers, we had to call them 0.999 and non-conforming legal lots. And the lenders didn't like that too much. In any case, I guess any questions that we have, I know I've got a couple or three on that line of thought.
Able to comment?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Charlotte did come to the planning commission meeting. I have her information right here. I just haven't been able to contact them to set up a meeting yet, because I want to hear what they have to say. Our table on what the new zoning regulation would be is with a decimal. Our current is a fraction. So I'm trying to address that portion of it. And then as to the acreage size, I haven't reduced anything in size on this one. So this does go with what our current is, but it doesn't mean that's what we should stay with, but this is what our current is. So those would be my only comments.
And that was, I guess, at the crux of my question was, we're not really changing anything on this. It's just a carryover from ag suburban and ag estates.
Yeah, nothing with lot size,
Right.
coverage, anything, nothing's deviating from the current on this consolidation.
So I know there's a whole lot of ag rural, obviously, over in Penrose. How many properties are actually ag suburban ag estates currently?
That's something I could research
I
for
want an
you if you
exact
like.
number right now. No, just kidding.
So I could absolutely research that.
That's a number.
It's a very limited number. There's one subdivision, Top Rail, that is in this zone, that I believe has had a minimum of 2.5 acres to date. And there's another area that's just to the east of the downtown area. It's where Broadway splits into North and South Broadway. And I think there are several lots in there that are 1 acre, but most of those that have already been subdivided are larger than that.
Okay.
So how, can I ask you a question? How many of those, like in Top Rail, already have water taps?
They all
They
have
all
water
do, right?
taps.
I thought they
but-
did.
But I guess our concern is that from the county's point of view, those people could potentially ask to subdivide their property further. And we don't want to sell them a water tap. In fact, our current regulations for our district are that we will not sell to anything that has not already been subdivided that's less than the 4.51 or nominal 5 acre lot.
I think from a practical standpoint, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but if, say there's a 5 acre lot in Penrose, and part of the subdivision process, if they wanted to cut it down to 5 1 acre lots, part of the input that we get would be, you know, what is the water supply for this subdivision? And Penrose Water comes back and says, there is no water supply for this
Right.
subdivision.
And we
our
have done-
decision
right.
at that point is pretty clear. You know, so, say again?
I think Dan had something else.
Dan, please.
No, and that is the case. The only thing that does cause, since our regulations allow for something that theirs don't, is it eventually causes conflict for one of our departments. Because we say that they can, and then they say that they can't provide. So that's, I think that's the negative that she's trying to address.
That is exactly
But-
the negative. And there have been times when landowners have kind of wanted to put us against each other. The county says we can do it, you say we can't. And I do think that in recent times, your department has been good about telling people that they need to come talk to us.
We try and get that out
Yeah.
right away to make sure before anyone's got anything invested, time, effort, money, that they know that everyone's on board before it starts. So
Right.
we're trying to do a really good job of that. So
Okay,
case by case.
all right. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Next, Lester, do you want to speak on, on 3? Okay, I will put that on here. Sue Madone. Sue.
Good morning.
Hello.
You guys know me, I'm Sue Madone. Can you scroll that up a little for me? I feel like, so this would be the zone that you're working on with me? Or down, I'm sorry. I'm suburban agriculture,
Yes.
so this would be the zoning?
Yes.
So the first thing on that is parking. You're saying, if I'm right, under, I thought I read on there that you couldn't have any parking on the roads? Maybe I didn't. Is that the, I guess I gotta go up a little more.
Right.
You're changing it from this one? You're changing it from that to something different?
So this one that you have up in front of you is what the new one would look like if approved.
Okay.
So
So-
Sue, basically, what he said earlier, let me help you just a little bit.
Sure.
Is there's 2 zones there. He's combined them both. The only changes are community buildings, golf courses, and the definition of a dwelling and a cemetery by SRU. So other than that, nothing's changing.
But besides
Right.
adding agritainment and, so all of the current restrictions, say in regards to parking, are what currently exists as well. So
Okay.
if you have concerns over what the parking are, that it's exactly what the parking regulations would be right now.
Okay, I am. Because that, under agriculture, says there's no on-street parking. But it's off-street. On-street parking, somebody parks on the street for agriculture?
Yes. So we try to have every project that comes in be able to handle their own parking on their own site and not spill out onto the roadways to lessen the impacts. So for any project that comes in, we try to make sure that their site can handle all of their demands. And that's how it's currently written as well.
So if you scroll back down, so the agri-entertainment,
Yep. Agri-tainment right there at the top?
so that's not gonna include that parking change? You can still park along the county right-of-way?
No, because right now, the way it currently is written is all of the parking requirements, the projects are supposed to be able to accommodate all of their parking. So if say your business has parking, the way it's supposed to occur is they're supposed to park on the lot. We're not supposed to spill out into the roadways and cause impacts to others, if at all possible.
And would it be safe to say that that's a requirement across zone districts and across all uses?
Absolutely, sir.
That's a foundational requirement regardless of what's on the left-hand side and what's on the right-hand side of the SRU.
Yes, sir.
column.
Yep, so regardless of zone district, the goal of the planning department is have whatever project is occurring, manage all of their own needs. And part of that is parking.
But again, none of this is a change to what currently exists.
It is a change, because the parking, when I first came in here and we have a parking plan, you guys wanted 300, you wanted a percentage of parking on our own property, which I turn that in every year, that percentage, and I have it all marked out where our parking is. The county right-of-way has always been people parking on it, no different than they park even for homes. People park out in the county right-of-way. If they have a home, they park on the county right-of-way. They don't pull into their garage, they park on the county right-of-way. So if you pass this, there's no parking on the county right-of-ways anymore.
So
Is that
Sue.
right?
Well, the reason you have that is you have a temporary use permit.
And it's allowed under the.
It's allowed under
So
that
that's
temporary
gonna
use
be
permit.
still allowed? That's still gonna be allowed?
That's why you get the TUP.
Yeah,
Right.
Under the TUP, that's why you have that parking, you're allowed to park the way you are. It should be noted for residential purposes, if somebody parks out in the street, they're not conducting a business. They're allowed to park off of their property or out on the edges of the roadway. That's allowable. The county's not changing that, but we try to make sure that businesses absorb their impacts. So for your parking requirements on your project moving forward, when you submit your application, that's when we're gonna review that. If you've been allowed to do that through your TUP, we're gonna assess that when you submit your application to see what you're actually submitting. Maybe yes, maybe no. It depends what you submit. Every application is slightly different. I can't give you a blanket yes right now without seeing exactly how you're proposing it.
Does that sound very substantially like you guys are gonna know what's gonna happen from year to year? To me, that sounds like from year to year, you could say, I don't think you should have parking on the county right-of-way. To me, that's not definite enough.
Well, this
If
is
at any-
you do have a temporary.
And he
Use
is
your-
saying
Yep.
that you're gonna turn in your permit, and if we agree to that year, we're gonna allow it. If we don't agree to it, is that the way you guys
But
hear it, or am I not hearing it?
That's the way it already is. That's why you come before us every year for a temporary use permit, because it's temporary. It's 1 year. It lasts for that one season. Those rules haven't changed. Our parking rules haven't changed. We have always waived that parking for you. And so we're not changing anything in our regulations as far as parking goes. So there's never been in the past a guarantee that we are going to let you park there every year because it's a year-by-year decision. I can't say when I'm gone, when he's gone, things aren't going to change. But there's never been a guarantee in the past. There never will be a guarantee in the future, because this is our regulation for parking, and this has been our regulations in the past. So that's not changing.
So the reason why I say it depends on what you submit is, say next year you submit and you're asking for a massive expansion over what you're currently doing. I don't know what you're going to propose on your next application. That's why I can't give you a blanket, everything's fine. I need to see something that's being proposed and be able to make a decision on that item. I can't give a blanket, yep, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden you propose parking for miles down the roadway and you say, I told you you could do it. I don't know what modifications you have in mind in the future of your business. So I need to see what you're going to propose to me to be able to give you a finite decision. That's what I'm trying to say. Hopefully I'm explaining it correctly.
Okay. I guess we'll go from there.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sue. George Hall, do you want to speak on one?
Do you want to vote on them each individually or just all at one time?
Say again?
I'd prefer you not vote today so you can consider the public comments.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I agree.
I think I can do a general at the end.
General at the end? Okay, no, that's fine. In that case, if, Lester, you wanted to speak on 3? Okay, so we'll go ahead and do number 2 unless there's further comments or questions on number 1. Then let's proceed on to number 2, and we'll take it one at a time here.
Yes, sir. All right, so for residential 2, this proposal in front of you is... Microphones. This proposal in front of you is a consolidation of these 2 districts, the agricultural rural and the agricultural living zone district, into a new residential 2, R2 zone district. The changes include reformatting, renaming, a new zone description, the development requirements of the smaller agricultural rural zone district becoming the standard, and consolidation of uses of the 2 zone districts while adding some new uses into the regulations. Our intent is exactly the same as I read last time, so I'll skip over that unless you guys want me to repeat myself. Again, you will see strike-throughs that show descriptions of uses that have been moved to general requirements or the definitions where they belong. Red and yellow, red details consolidations, yellow details new uses. So the agricultural rural zone district is 4.5 acres, whereas the agricultural living zone district had a minimum of 9. So when you look at the new residential 2 zone district, you'll see a minimum acreage. What my department tried to do in this consolidation is take into consideration the more intense uses and try to limit their locations to the larger parcels in the zone district. So while we've done a consolidation of uses, the more intense uses kind of have a limiting factor to make them more compatible. Again, on the right-hand side, you have conditions. They either will refer you back to sections, which right now their section numbers may have to be tweaked depending on how the new resolution evolves. But we try to give examples or brief indications of what that includes. So then as we go on down the way, we have added ag-retainment to this zone district as well. Contractor's yard, we kind of broke out contractor's yard in between a contractor's yard 1 and a contractor's yard 2. The one is the less intense version that's allowed most places, and 2 is that SRU where the larger acreage requirement. So if you see that a little 1 or 2 next to it, we've kind of broken that out to make things more clear. From for our regulations, accessory dwelling units will be under the dwelling definition. We've added elementary school, detailed home occupations in there. And then under the SRUs, we have, through the consolidation, we have assisted living residences. Cemetery is an SRU if it's the 4.5 acre size, but if it's 9 or larger, it's allowed. So again, that acreage restriction to try and break things out a little bit. Farm and ranch supplies, feed store. Current use in ag living was that fur-bearing animal farm that we currently have in the regulations, but that's limited by 9 acres. Golf courses, and we added in restaurants with or without a brewery. Right now in our regulations, we don't really allow for breweries. So we brought up that distinction, as well as, let me just double check before I say it. Nope, so breweries we've added to restaurants in this zone district as well. The minimum lot or development requirements are that of the AR, that's 4.5 acres, a 15% lot coverage, which is a slight increase over the ag living lot coverage of 10%. We've decreased the setbacks to the agricultural rural setbacks. And that's basically it. We have a new description, some uses by consolidation, some new uses, and we've tried to really limit it based off of land size.
Okay.
Okay. Not confusing at all.
I'm trying to do my best to adequately explain the differences.
This one's more complicated than the previous one.
This one is a little bit. It does allow for an increase in density in the agricultural living zone district, while it doesn't allow for an increase in density in the AR zone districts.
Relatively speaking, when we talk about like the ag living and ag, and the next one, ag farming and ranching, there's just not a whole lot of them across the county to begin with.
There's not. We have a large amount of agricultural rural. Ag living is on the smaller side. So it does allow for, like I said, a small increase in density in those districts, but we don't have a lot of it.
But it doesn't really affect a large percentage of.
It's minor impact in the overall
Very minor
scheme.
impact overall because of that increased density potential.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay, any questions for Mr. Victoria?
I do have one.
Sure.
All right. Looking at cemeteries.
Yes, ma'am.
Minimum acres of 9 acres, it appears to me as though a cemetery is allowed use.
Yes.
But if you're going to have a smaller cemetery between 4.5 to 9 acres, that's subject to an SRU.
Yes.
Is that simply because it would be the density question?
So in that one, in ag rural currently, if you wanted to have a cemetery, you're looking at an SRU process. So in ag living currently, 9 acres or larger, it's allowed. So while trying to make changes but also limit changes, we feel by having an acreage designation, it gives people options, but it also limits. Like if it's going to be in a smaller parcel, it needs to come into us for a review as it currently would. Whereas if it's one of the larger ones, it's going to follow what the standard protocol is now. So we're making changes, but we're also not trying to make too many changes, I guess.
I will just say, we'll leave it at this for now, but that feels a little odd to me, that
Okay.
something larger is allowed, but something smaller requires the additional application and
it's-
approval.
I think that's primarily put in place at this time, or the way it currently is now is it would be placing cemeteries in a more residential zone, more densely populated sort of areas. Typically, the ag living we have now, since they're all 9 acres, it's larger parcels, it's more spread out. Whereas ag rural is half the size, it's more dense. So we're trying to address impacts.
Okay.
I think that's the goal behind
Yeah,
it.
that's what I was thinking, was the density
Yeah.
of uses. So, all right, thank you. That's the only thing I have for now. Thanks.
I guess as far as cemeteries go in special review, it says 4.5 to 9 acres. has that 9 acres. But then it says 9 acres up on the allowed use. If you do run into that unicorn lot, that is actually 9.00000 acres.
That is a fantastic catch.
I'm thinking you just leave the 4.5 acres in that column as the minimum, and you can make a note over in conditions that there is a allowed use of minimum 9 acres to refer them back up in the columns.
Yep, that's a fantastic catch. As much as we've looked at this, there's still those little items that catch us.
And I imagine that will be a lot of the job over the next few months. Catching these little things. But thank you, just in general, a lot of work has been put into these, so thank you for that. All right, was there any questions or comments on number 2 here? George, come on up.
Still want to talk later too, but that's okay.
That's fine.
My question is on the stables.
Could you identify yourself for the record, please?
George Hall, Crown Point Land Services.
Thank you.
Is on the stables, you got a 300 feet from all the property lines. Typically on a 4.5 acre piece of property, you're looking at a 330 by 660. How is that going to work with your building setbacks?
That's a fantastic question. That 300-foot setback is what is in the current regulation, so that wasn't modified. My guess, and I hate to guess, would be that just because it has a minimum doesn't mean there's not lots out there in that zone district that can't meet what past planners have decided was the requirement.
I won't argue with you. I just know that there's several, what I would call stable type of situations in Penrose that don't meet that setback at this current time.
Mm-hmm.
So since that's not sitting there at this point in time and they're already existing, is that going to be grandfathered in?
Well, we generally try not to grandfather anything in. When I'm assuming you're going down the non-conforming road, because I know we've had this conversation before. Generally, when we find a non-conforming, we have to actually meet with the applicant. We have a whole process to apply for non-conforming. We have people provide proof of when their non-conforming started to see that it predated zoning. The non-conforming section of the regs is going to come up later down the road here, but
It was just a question.
no, it's a good question.
Okay.
Your mic's off.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. All right, any other questions? Come on up to the mic, Sue.
Can I go back to the other one, real
Yeah.
quick? I had one other question on that, and I wanted to see if we could maybe change that wording.
On the residential one, okay.
Yeah, suburban agriculture is what it was, but, so if you go down a little bit, it says, crops. No agricultural products may be sold that are not produced on the premises. It's under roadside stand. Is there a way that that could go away? I know it's in there now. It's under suburban agriculture now. I'm wondering if that could possibly go away, because that could be, that's a problem for me. I know it's a problem for other people like wineries that are trying to produce a little wine and selling their wine. You know, they're getting grapes from other farms, putting that in there. Now, I know like Manny Colon, he ships in his products, but he's zoned different. I think he's zoned, I'm not sure what he's zoned. But in this zoning area, I'm wondering if we can take this away. So I'll tell you why. Because I have a field on Chestnut, that those pumpkins come over to the pumpkin patch. So I'm not sure if that changes because I have a TUP, but those pumpkins on Chestnut, which we bought 5 acres on Chestnut, those pumpkins get moved over to 1649, because I sell them at 1649.
Yep, if I could, the folks that come into us for their permits, the roadside stand is not applying to what you guys are all doing. The roadside stand applies to if somebody pops something out on the end of their driveway or the corner of whatever property, and they're bringing in stuff from all over the state or maybe out of the state in order to sell it at their location where they're not tied to something else that's going on or a different permit.
Okay,
So the roadside stand of stuff going on for sale on your property is so anyone in our community can sell whatever they're growing. But if you're starting to bring stuff in and kind of expand and you're not tied to something else that we have going on, we have that limiting factor.
okay.
So I'm not sure if that changes your opinion.
No, I just wanted to know what that's going to entail, because I know it's in there now. I just wanted to check on that.
So if they bring something in that's not produced on the property, then it becomes something other than a roadside stand?
Then, yes, then they would need to come in and have a conversation with us about what they're doing, what scale, what they're offering, what their
Okay.
business is.
So address what Sue said to start with. She's got pumpkins on another piece of property, just not very far away, but it's not grown on that property.
But she's not a roadside stand. We're
At
not
all?
viewing her, no.
Okay.
So
All
she's
right.
not classified as a roadside stand. She doesn't meet that definition, so
Gotcha.
it doesn't apply to her.
It's just an allowable use with certain parameters
Yep. So
other than what you're doing. Okay.
So
got it.
since she comes in for her TUP or whatever
Got it.
permit she may have, then she can do all those things tied to that permit.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
No, thanks for that. That's helpful anyway, so, okay. If there's nothing else on number 2, let's proceed on to number 3. And Dan, if you'd like to go ahead and proceed with that.
So residential 3. Residential 3 is to address the consolidation and rewrite the agricultural, farming, and ranching in agricultural forestry zone district. The proposal in front of you is a consolidation of these two districts in the new residential R3 zone district. Changes include reformatting, renaming, a new zone description, the development requirements of the smaller zone district, AF&R, becoming the standard, consolidation of uses of the 2 zone districts, and adding new uses into the regulations. So as we go forward, this zone district would wind up going down to a 20-acre minimum, which is the current AF&R zone requirements. All of the requirements listed at the top of the table are the current AF&R zone requirements. We have consolidated the uses. You can see here, so the description of the zone district, we've rewritten that. We've moved a bunch of what is in the current regulations to its appropriate section, which will be presented at a later time. We've added in agritainment, animal units, contractor's yard 1 versus 2, the different types of dwellings, and then the forestry operations for varying animal farms or commercial firewood cutting, which is coming down from that ag forestry. We detail out the roadside stand, adding sawmill wasn't allowed in AF&R, it was allowed in ag forestry under the CEP, so consolidated that use, brought that down. Solar fields, commercial wildlife parks, and for varying animal farms. So we brought down a bunch of stuff from that ag forestry into the AF&R zone district. This one has a 20-acre minimum if you would like to go through the subdivision process. But this zone district right now, the ag forestry zone district, has a 35-acre minimum, which individuals currently can do a division of land as long as the lots are 35 acres or larger by having a plat drawn up and recording and not going through a subdivision process. So for the folks in the current ag forestry zone district, the new R3 zone district, if it's approved, If individuals want to go that route, have a plat done and do a division of land, they can still record with the clerk and be exempt from the subdivision process. But if folks want to try to increase the density and go to this 20-acre minimum,
Something below 35 acres.
something below 35 acres, then they will have to come to us.
Turn your
for
mic on. There you go.
Cripes.
Just repeat everything.
Luckily, I talk loud.
Huh?
So,
Yeah, no.
so yes, so if people want to do a subdivision below the 35 acres, they'll have to come to see the department. So if they want to increase the density, they'll be in front of us for a subdivision or preliminary plan or preliminary plat. So
And just to note, that 35 acre minimum is a state statute.
that is a state statute.
That's Senate Bill, remarkably enough, 35, I think, back in 1972 or something.
Yep, so this does give individuals, if they want to create a division of land or a subdivision, two different ways to do it depending on the acreage they want to go with. So that's what kind of makes this one zone district a little unique. But other than that, we would be going down to a 20-acre minimum. You know, most of the current ag forestry that's already split out into 35s, clearly that can't go any smaller. So there's going to be no increase in density in those lots. But for folks moving forward, they get to make a choice. Do they want to do it a division of land or a subdivision?
Okay?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So on that one, is there currently an ag farming and ranching, an animal units? Or units?
So unit applies to all of our zone districts. We wound up putting it in this one since typically our larger zone districts are primarily agriculture related with livestock on it. I do notice that as you're asking me this, we don't have animal units, I believe, listed in the other ones,
We do not.
which could be an oversight. While in the descriptions, they all allow for agriculture. So we do have, nope, R2, we have animal units in as well.
Well, yeah, it is, because that's what I was asking you about, yes.
Yeah, so I misspoke. Animal units is in every one of our
But
zone
you
districts.
added it to this one. It wasn't current, it's not currently in.
Yeah, let me look at the existing real quick. Yep, in our current animal units wasn't listed in the current agricultural farming and ranching zone district. So for consistency, we added that one in, I would go with.
I don't think it should be in this one, personally.
Okay.
The other two I get, but I don't think 20 acres, it's a lot different.
You mean as far as maximum units
Yeah,
on the 20-plus acres?
correct.
Yeah, so I believe our current animal unit chart, it details out on the smaller acreage, it goes up, and then it basically has a scale as the acreage gets bigger, the numbers expand. But I think the current animal unit chart stops at a certain acreage, and it just kind of implies that it grows as the acreage grows.
Because I also think we would run into something somebody had said before, but if I have, hopefully somebody that has 20 acres and is running too many cows isn't overgrazing their property, for one thing. That's just irresponsible on their part. But if I'm doing it correctly and not overgrazing and running a certain amount now, and now you're gonna come and tell me I can't run that many, we're gonna have a problem. So that's what I don't want to get into with this particular one, not the other two,
Okay.
just our three. And that's my thought on that.
So the way the regulations currently are, and the way the chart kind of expands as it goes up, this isn't a change, it's just detailing it where it wasn't detailed before. So it's not like we're trying to add something to restrict anyone. It's how it currently how it would currently apply, I guess is the correct way to say it. But the number of animals as the acreage goes up really expands when you get in these larger acreage tracts.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, because the last thing that the Planning and Zoning Department is trying to do is limit somebody's agricultural endeavors. That's not the goal of any of this, and while we took agriculture out of the name of the district, that's more to help people with financing options, whereas in the descriptions and in the allowed uses, agriculture is listed right there.
And I think that's one thing to really point out. It's not diminishing agriculture at all, and I'll keep my question. I'll look at that chart, and then I'll make
I think,
another suggestion.
I think when it comes to that, if we have a 20-acre lot, and if we don't have a maximum on there, at what point does the scale tip and becomes a feed yard?
Well, and that always is a concern, how densely you can pack in. We've recently done some research yesterday and this morning that the state actually has definitions of confinement in the Department of Public Health that can be very restrictive. So while we haven't modified the animal units that we allow, if you start cross-referencing with enough government agencies, you're going to start finding hiccups that aren't us.
Right, right. Which makes all of this process so fun.
It makes it very complicated.
Because I don't know, I could be the most pro-ag person in the universe, and I'd love to be a neighbor to a grazing pasture, but not to a feedlot.
Yes, there is quite a difference between the two.
Right.
And grazing is very different than a commercial cattle business.
Right.
So there are other restricting
Right.
layers that would pop in depending on what is actually presented in front of us.
And I just want to make sure that we have something, maybe not here as far as maximum units, but some other part of code that would help us define that.
Well, in this one, the way he has it currently, or proposed, is it takes an SRU for a feedlot, so that would
Right.
take care of your concern.
But if somebody
I think.
claims use by right
Yeah.
to run their 500 head on
And-
20 acres.
And there are a lot of differences, and I hate saying it's site-specific, but there's a lot of nuances in how individuals run their operations. So there's our permitting, there's the State Department of Public Health and how they view things, and based off of their definitions, it might reclassify how we view it. There's many layers.
Okay. Well, and that's basically where I'm going, is there has to be some position, some fallback there, some minimum standards at some level that we're not allowing just anything to happen on 20 acres.
Yes, yeah, because, 50 cows versus 5,000. Quite a difference.
You'd be stacking them on top of each other at that point. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Not at this time.
No.
Okay, Lester, we got to you.
Lester Lamone, 425 Main here in Canyon is my company, P3 Communities. I'm an architect, community development professional. So let's talk about livestock just for a minute, because it's why I wanted to get to this particular zoning. I live in this particular zoning. I also help develop other pieces of this particular zoning. And this particular zoning is governed in large part by HOA POAs here in Fremont County. So I work on technical documents too in terms of regulation and helping POA and HOAs navigate this kind of thing. So let's talk about an HOA or POA that is falling into the ag forestry now. It's 35-acre tracts. Were originally ranches to begin with, right, and they're split up. We know what we're talking about. But there are, without animal units being defined someplace, it then falls to the next level of governance, which is the POA, right? And so the POA can be more restrictive, but not less restrictive. And also, in large part, POAs are enjoying a reduced real estate taxation based on their agricultural uses, right? So as long as we have grazing leases applied to the POA, then we get to continue to enjoy that benefit. Now, we still have those of us who want to own our little section of America and do whatever we want on our 35 acres. And so we are balancing, I guess, the POA is balancing the benefit of the community, right, with the individual benefit. So if I want to have a few animals on my property, I want to fence in my animals, fencing out the grazing lease animals, which is obviously we're a fence out state. That becomes an odd balance to strike from a regulatory position. So we're in the same boat you are, is trying to strike an even, I guess, application. So when we also have to, because people come to us, just like they come to you, with the weirdest requests, and we got to figure out how does this fit in with our covenants. And again, our taking into account the responsibility we have to our leasehold agent too. What is livestock? What is pet animals? The state statutes define both of those, but again, when we're talking about animal units, how many, if you're going to fence out a portion of your 35 because you want to enjoy it for your use, versus some percentage that is the bulk of your percentage of land left over for the grazing lease, where do those animal units come in? Now, cattle and horses are fine because we're used to those. They're large animals. We can sort of count them. Then we get into swine. And swine is really the issue. We've had folks that say, I want to raise a few head of swine because my kid's in 4-H, right? So that's absolutely, we want to encourage that as a POA. But where does that fall into animal units, and where does that fall into what is the real concern, and that is sanitation? It's not about the grass on the land as much as it's about where's this effluent going, and how do we control that when it's not a commercial opportunity. We're not raising them to sell them, but we're raising where they will be sold, right? They'll be butchered at the end because it's still 4-H, but there's a weird balance. So what I would say to the commission and to Mr. Victoria's office is the more guidance you can give, I know you're not trying to restrict, but the more clues you can hide inside your zoning code that the rest of us can interpret is to our benefit. Otherwise, we are going out to the Department of Agriculture and finding out what the ideal head per acre is, but then again, it's rabbits, it's guinea pigs, it's hogs and different kinds of hogs. It's pot-bellied versus pet versus swine for butchering. So I guess what I'm asking you is, I'm not advocating any position. What I'm saying is, it's helpful when you begin to give us a clue. So that we can begin to interpret at our level how we balance that individual's rights versus the right of the POA, the community. You don't want to live next to a feedlot, and we don't either. So that's what I would say about that. And so I appreciate your comments, and I would encourage you to consider that. Don't step back too far and hope that the rest of us figure it out. Sometimes a little bit of guidance is helpful.
Do we have any counties or any, I guess, examples from other governments that have gone through this that have marked the difference in the regulations between different kinds of animals? 50 cows is a whole lot different than 50 pigs.
Yeah, or goats.
Or goats.
Goats will eat you to the dirt.
Yeah.
So currently in our
fencing
regs,
those out.
yeah, currently in our regs, we have animal units established, and our chart is not great to look at, if I'm being completely honest. We're going to make that easier to understand. But we currently have so many chickens, ducks, or rabbits classify as one animal unit, with so many animal units being allowed per acre. So we currently have a chart that kind of breaks it down by species or like-size species, from chicken and bunny all the way up. We generally have, or we do have regulations that say if you're going to be building a structure that houses animals, the setbacks are generally farther away than your standard structure setback to accommodate for possible manure or impacts due to the livestock. So we do have stuff broken out. The current regulations, cattle, they don't count as an animal unit until they're a year, and I believe swine is 6 months. So depending on what type of animal it is, it has to be a certain age before it counts. So that way somebody can have a litter of pigs and grow outs and be able to get rid of them. Or, you know, if you, per cow-calf pair, you have the ability to raise cattle and sell before it negatively impacts the animal units you're allowed.
Right.
Swine is also a year.
Swine is, okay, so swine is also a year. So it's probably in your freezer before it counts as an animal.
I hope so.
So we do have some stuff with the animal units. We're gonna try and clean up our chart a little bit and reword some things. We've had certain issues come up where we've noticed there's little loopholes and stuff, so we're gonna try and button some stuff up.
And any specifics that you might have would certainly be open to that as far as.
Well, and
helping
again,
that
we're trying to
relationship.
write our ordinance or
Right.
our covenants based on your ordinances, right? We're trying to figure out how we're more restrictive, but how we're not less restrictive. And then we're trying to pull from all of these different avenues too, to make sure that we understand our playing field.
And hide all those hopes, all those helps somewhere.
Yeah, if you
there.
can.
So I want it easier to read, but I also want it to be the Da Vinci Code.
We don't mind pouring through it as long as it's there. And so I appreciate that that was not my topic for today, but I appreciate that it was brought up. My topic for today, though, again, is talking about 35-acre parcels or 20 acre parcels. As many of you may or may not know, there's case law out of Texas now that the Colorado Assembly has latched onto in terms of vacation rentals. So now vacation rentals are no longer considered commercial use, and so many of our POAs are written, the covenants are written so that you can have no commercial use inside the boundaries of the POA. Vacation rentals now fall outside that, so they are not considered commercial use. So now we're trying to decide how we write new policy language or new covenant language that allows for vacation. We're not trying to discourage it, but we're trying to put some rules around it. So because this is now going to be new. And for the most part, what we're trying to do in most rural POAs is protect our roads, because that's the biggest expense that we have is road maintenance. And so this category talks about, and right there is dwelling unit, talks about accessory dwelling units. Accessory dwelling units are a use by right on almost all properties now, from the smallest urban lots all the way out to what we have now. Currently, you go out and develop a piece of property in the county, architecturally or from the building code standpoint, there's proof of water. Our codes are written that you have to have proof of water showing you got to drill a dry hole right before you can begin to start delivering water. Well, that's my understanding is there's a leniency to that now. There's no, we're trying not to overburden an individual to go out and drill a $30,000 dry hole and then allow them to start delivering water. Well, that accommodation, which is a great accommodation, I don't dispute that at all, but the connection, the regulation for connecting the primary residence to the accessory dwelling unit, that connection is now blurred a little bit. Now that we don't have to have, now that they're not working on a single thing that we can develop to, potentially, with different services, allowing for separation, especially on these larger parcels, for the express purpose of vacation rental. So that's where I'm trying to tie this back into the vacation rental piece, and that is we now have out-of-state or even in-state buyers looking only for property that is vacation rental capable. And a lot of POAs in Fremont County are now scrambling again to put some rules or restrictions around what that means, not trying to discourage it, but trying to have some rules or restrictions around it, where before it was just blanketed no commercial, right, which kept out beds and breakfasts and those kinds of enterprises. It's not, and so it's a recent change, bringing it to your attention so that as we coordinate between planning and zoning, building, and development in general, that we're still allowing for the freedom of one's use of one's property and the ability to develop that and make money off of it, however we'd like to do that, is tempered a little bit with those kinds of connections. So that's what I'm bringing to your attention today. So
Okay,
that's what I had.
thank you, sir.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? Mr. Lang?
No, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay. We are still on number residential zone 3. George, did you want to go ahead and do your comments now?
I think some of the questions here was very good. I think that everybody did a good job. I'm not against what you're doing by any means. The only thing I want to really hit on is the old ag suburban zone district was a 5-acre zone district, but because of surveys going around it and roads being taken out of it, that's why it dropped down to a 4.5-acre zone district. This is stuff that was dealt with 25 years ago when we did the zoning clear back then. What I'm saying is the acreage, minimum acreage of all these were subject to a 40-acre piece of property. We figure is 1320, 1320. A lot of the sections out there are not full sections, and so they are not 40 acres in size. And then you have a road taken out of them, so therefore you only have 38 acres to be split into 2 pieces, basically. What I would like to see is possibly with the same percentage as what you've done previously. I know you guys weren't part of it, but previously, with the same type of percentage with that minimum acreage, to maybe make this an 18-acre zone district instead of the 20, much in the same proration as what the other districts have been done.
In case you had something less than a 40-acre tract that you wanted to split down into,
Well, it's a quarter call.
right?
Everybody thinks, well, that's a 40-acre piece of property. You go out
Until
and
you
you do
survey
the
it.
survey,
Yeah.
and it's only 39 acres. Well, can they develop it? Can they not develop it then? That's where my question's coming from. And so if we just drop that down with the same percentage as what you've done with the other zone districts, then that could be accommodated in that fashion. Instead of it being 20 acres, actually be 18 acres or what have you, using the same proration.
Okay.
One of the other notes that have come up recently in some different properties. Previously, there has been some improper classifications on different lots that were a singled out lot that should never been zoned what it was zoned, but it was. Everybody can see that it was improperly zoned back when. If there could be some authorization that could be presented, that the director could actually do something as far as use whatever word you want to use, grandfather it in, that it's automatically just state that, hey, it was improperly zoned before, it should have been zoned this in the first place, and let it go through without doing the whole zone change process. I don't know how that would work or anything else. Me and Dan have talked about it briefly, and I'm sure in the next coming weeks, so we're going to get into it much more in detail.
So let me clarify what you're asking. So if there's one that was zoned improperly, you want Dan to be able to change the zone without?
Well, I
And-
think there needs to be some type of process, Dwayne. I don't say that it's just automatically done or anything, but if it can be shown that it was genuinely improperly zoned by nobody's, other than
Right.
just a mistake being made. I mean, this one in particular, it's got a zoning, it's the same zoning across the street, but it's surrounded by the zoning that it should have been in the first place.
Okay, that makes more
And
sense.
it met the criteria and everything, but it somehow or another got put into the wrong zone district.
I think part of the issue on that, George, that we'll run into is we'll have some of those like that, but it wasn't necessarily a mistake at the time. There may have been intention behind it. We don't understand that. The problem is we can't go back in time and understand what the intention was.
Well, I agree,
putting
there
it.
could be some type of a process, but maybe not as lengthy of a process as what it is at this point in time.
And that's a fair thing. We can always look at ways to streamline processes to make things go quicker but without taking out the deliberation that this board is required to have. So I think that's something we're always intent on looking at. So,
Streamlining the whole process,
yeah.
And I'm going to hit on something, I know we're not going to get no comment on it at this point in time, but in my estimation, if you have a dwelling that was sitting there and was built in 1968, which was prior to any of the zoning regulations or anything else, it was built 15 feet from the property line instead of 25 feet from the property line. It was before the regulations got put in, and I believe that should be grandfathered in automatically. Maybe with a deal that if it ever burns down or something, yeah, it needs to be put back within the current regulations. But if it was done and built prior to the regulations coming into effect, I don't think you should have to go through your whole process of paying another $350 to get a,
Non-conforming status.
yeah.
Oh, okay. That's
So
what we're talking about.
We currently
Yeah.
have the ability for people
I
to.
just have to job that in there because I know it's going to be a topic coming up and what have you. The only question that I want to finish with and everything, when will we be seeing the maps of this rezoning classifications coming out so that we could actually review them, potentially so that I would like to see the maps come out so that the property owners could actually review and see what zone district their property is being zoned in, where they could verify that their zoning is correct and they're happy with it, and they could bring it to your attention before everything is finalized, I guess is where I'm going to with that.
Okay. I don't know if we've talked about actual mapping and changing of the maps and overlays, but,
We have not done any sampling of what the new overlays would look like or what that would do. We've just been focused on the content at this point. So if that's something this commission would like, then that's something I can get started on.
yeah, George, I think we'll be talking about that in upcoming meetings to get a time frame as far as when we'll be doing that.
I just wanted to throw it in your, so you got it in the back of your mind.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated. we are at the end of my list up here. Is there anybody else that would care to speak on any of the above that we've been talking about for the last hour plus? Seeing none. Dan, please.
I have one little wrap-up.
Yes.
The residential 1, 2, and 3 zone consolidation and rewrite has been, as presented to you guys, was presented to the Planning Commission. So I would like to just give you their feedback before we wrap
Please.
that up.
Yes.
All right. So the Planning Commission was presented these zone consolidations and rewrite on August 1st of 2023 and had the following feedback. As presented, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the consideration of the following recommendations with a formal adoption date. I think we landed on April 1st of 2024. So the Planning Commission recommendations. The Commission is concerned the county has chosen district names that match district names in other municipalities. They have asked about the feasibility of choosing different names for the county districts to avoid any possible confusion. The Commission has recommended adding a visual aid to the front of each district to provide an example of what a conforming lot may look like. The Commission thought adding a statement informing citizens that other agencies may be involved in projects and additional requirements, and may have additional requirements. And the Commission requested any significant changes to these documents be sent back to them for review. And that was the feedback from the Planning Commission.
Okay. Any thoughts in addition?
On that or on anything?
Anything.
Yes.
Absolutely anything.
Okay, first, I would just like to thank Dan, our Director of Planning and Zoning, as well as staff and Planning Commission for all of the incredibly hard work that has gone into this. We have talked for years about rewriting, a complete rewrite of our code, and it's finally here. It's happening, and it's a really exciting moment, I think, for all of us. But I have to make public the fact that when I started diving into the information that we received, I was so confused because I saw a table, and then I saw all of our former regulations that are all in paragraph format with references back and forth, and go look at this number, and then come back here, and go over here, and come back here. My immediate understanding was the table was a highlight of these are the things we're changing, and then I was also looking for that same paragraphic information. And so I finally had to ask. I was like, what exactly am I looking for? And when Dan explained to me that that table is the new code, I was pretty blown away. And so I think that what that department has done in going from those pages and pages and reams of paperwork with written explanations into an actual chart or a table that you can look at, you can immediately understand, is the best thing that I've seen come out of this department for a very, very long time. And I just want to say thank you so very much for that. It's been very thoughtful, all of the work that you've put into it. I think we also all continue to have a couple of questions that we need to sort of wrestle with and work through in our own minds. But I just wanted to say thank you. This has been an incredible job. I understand what a heavy lift this has been to get it to this point, and I think we may have a few tweaks, but it looks pretty incredible, so thank you.
Okay. Ditto? Yeah. I mean, this is, this feels like the beginning of the process, but this isn't even remotely close to the beginning of the process. This is something that we've been talking about, at least since I've been here, and I know it's probably been talked about prior to my time in this building. And prior to your time is running the show up in that office.
I know at least 3 directors that have been having
Right.
goals for this.
Yes, and so this has been a work in progress over, I think it's safe to say, years to even get to this point. And so we really appreciate everybody's input and help on this, because we still got a lot of work ahead of us when it comes to all these things. This was probably the easy one.
Much more
today.
to come.
Well, that's why you remind everybody that on October 24th
Yeah.
is more of these formatting zone districts, airport, low density, manufactured homes, business zones, industrial zones, so more comments are welcome on those as well.
And I was going to leave this alone, but now I'm not. So one of the other pieces of input I think we'd enjoy from the public is even the simple things that don't have any real meat as far as, what these regulations do and the reclassifications, et cetera. There's even the comment from our commission about the choosing of different names so that we don't confuse it with city zoning. I don't care what the city zoning calls their stuff. The fact of the matter is we are here to make sure that we do this so that it's better for our citizens in the county so that they can better understand exactly what their zoning is. And if a simple name such as residential 1 or residential 2 or residential 3 helps get to the heart of what the primary use of these zones are, that's what we want to get at. We're not changing any of the underlying ag emphasis on these zonings, but we want to make it everything simpler, and that's what these charts accomplish, and that's what all the work that Dan and his crew have been going through that we certainly appreciate, and getting us to the end goal of user friendliness overall. And that's an ongoing process as far as that goes. So beyond when April 1st, when we finally get to a conclusion on this, hopefully, that we're sometime before that. We want this to be better for people to be able to look at it at a glance and understand exactly what is going on without needing a team of lawyers to try to understand what they're allowed to do on their piece of property. Anyway, any further comments? Again, we're not taking a vote on this today. We're taking public comment, and then we'll continue this process moving forward.
I just have one more thing to say.
You bet.
I've lived in a lot of really nice incorporated areas through my career. When I was able to pick where I wanted to come, I came to Fremont County because I wanted to live this ag lifestyle. And I really appreciate the fact that our county commissioners are sticking up for that. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Really appreciate that.
You
With
need
that-
to set it over to a date certain.
And close the public hearing.
And close the public hearing. I think we'll start with that. If there are no further comments, we are going to close the public hearing. And we will need a motion to set this over to a date certain. What is that date certain? What is your preference, fellow commissioners? I guess we need some dates in front of us.
Yeah.
I also think it's going to depend on how we want to take a look at this. If we want to approve our complete rewrite as a whole, or if we want to complete the pieces of it as we go through. So.
And I guess, Brenda, what, moving forward on this, would we be, when we have that date certain, on that date, would a motion then be for just a preliminary approval or for approving each of these sections? Give me an idea of what we're talking about here.
Well, it really depends on how the board wants to do it. It's kind of nice to have finality to a section and not leave it open, even though the entire plan probably won't be ready until next spring. And so I think just for clarity, giving preliminary approval with an effective date sometime next spring is probably a better way to go. Then we don't have to keep going back and revisiting things that have already been addressed.
But that wouldn't preclude us from going back in and addressing something we missed either.
It would not. And I would anticipate there would be one final public hearing or two when the whole plan is put together to get
Okay.
final input.
And I think that's what I wanted you guys to hear, that even though that we'll be doing approvals after we take in the public comment, that this is still a work in progress right on up to
Final
the
adoption.
final adoption for each of these sections, okay? All right. So, any preferences on dates? We have the 26th is our next meeting.
I believe we probably can be ready to make a determination on the 26th. I'm willing to make that motion if my fellow commissioners
You good
agree.
with that? I'm okay with that, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move to table these particular regulations to our next meeting, which will be Tuesday, September 26th, beginning at 9:30 a.m. in the morning, with an effective date anticipated in April of 2024.
Okay,
Second.
that has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Bell,
Aye.
Commissioner McFall,
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And with that, no further business to come before this board. We are adjourned.